Pleased to be here. I love to talk about social marketing, and so I take most opportunities I can to share that with people. I belong to a Rotary Club in Seattle where you have your name tag, and then under your name you have your classification, and mine says social marketing. And often I'll be sitting next to somebody who I hadn't sat next to before, and they'll say, "Nancy, social marketing, what do you do?" And I love research, and so I usually say, "Well, what do you think? What do you think social marketing is?" And 9 times out of 10, I hear, "Do you own a dating service?" I mean, it is a business club, so it's not exactly profound that that's what they would say. But so I do love to spread the word. A dating service. It's not the same as social media. And we'll spend about an hour going through some of the real intro basics about social marketing. And then we'll take a break. And then I'm going to go through a detailed, another hour on how to put together a social marketing plan. But I also like to tell people that I haven't met before how I feel like I ended up here with you. And I will go back as far as my last class in graduate school. And I had a professor who told us to take out a sheet of paper and write down, I want you to pretend that you're 83 years old. 83. It's actually a very good marketing principle just to say 83 because I still remember 83 versus just 80. To write down what is it when you're 83 years old that you want to be able to say about your career. So I was completing my MBA, my major was in marketing. And I had not thought about it before. I sat there and wrote this down that day. And I wrote down that I want to be a marketer that contributes to the quality of life. And that was in 1980. And in 1980, in the U.S., that landed like an oxymoron. You know, marketing and quality of life in the same sentence, even in the same paragraph, was not normal. In fact, marketing was seen as the very thing that was detracting from the quality of life. So that did not look back in 1980 like a really easy thing to do. And yet, I took that on and decided that's exactly what I want to do. And the first thing that has guided me, and I'll tell you a couple of steps that it guided me in over the years. The first step it guided me in was what to do when I left. And I went immediately to try to find a job in a marketing research firm. Because there had not been many fantastic marketing programs that I'd read about in any of the cases, or quite frankly experienced as a consumer, where the company didn't really have some great insight into the customer, or the competition, or the marketplace. So I decided I wanted to go learn marketing research. And I spent 3 years in the research firm in downtown Seattle, learning focus groups and quantitative surveys and statistical analysis, and I had 2 clients that I was working on in the research firm. One was our Metro Transit, our bus system. And I loved that kind of research. Finding out who rides the bus, who doesn't ride the bus, what can we do to get more people to ride the bus. That was just so cool. I just loved it. But then I also had this bank client, and I never, of course, told them, but it was really boring. It was stuff like, what percent of checking accounts in Seattle does this bank have versus the other bank, and whose name comes up first when you say the name of a bank, and how much more can we charge for a checking account with overdraft before they leave the bank. And I mean, it was important stuff, but it was just so boring to me. And I'd been in the research firm for almost 3 years and felt like I was really learning marketing research, but felt like I better get on to the client side. I better start now making some marketing decisions. And I interviewed for jobs at both the bank and at the Metro Transit. And they both had a research job opening. And I interviewed for those, and I was offered both of those jobs. And it was a Friday, and I needed to let them know on a Monday. So I took the weekend to decide. And as I was shopping for a coat that I knew I needed at the Bon Marché, I remembered my little sheet of paper, a marketer that improves the quality of life. And I thought, well, that means I should go to the bus company. And I should help get people to ride the bus, and that will improve pollution. And the more I thought about it, though, I thought, well, now, wait a minute. What do I really know? I know I've had 3 years of marketing research. What do I really know about marketing? And if I'm going to be a really good marketer, I really need to learn from the best. Well, the bank was hiring at the time people from Procter & Gamble. The research budget that I'd be managing was $500,000. At Metro Transit, the people that were in the marketing department had grown up through Metro Transit, even many of them as a bus driver. The marketing director there had originally been a bus driver, and the research budget was $50,000. And I was looking at these coats on the coat rack, and there was this beautiful green cape, looked like woven off of somebody's fine loom. And I thought, oh man, if I go to the bus company, I can wear this green cape. And right next to it was this John Malloy Dress for Success camel hair coat. And oh, if I go to the bank, I've got to buy that camel hair coat. And then I looked back at that, in my mind, at that sheet of paper. And thought, okay, if I really want to be a great marketer, I better go learn marketing. So I bought the camel hair coat, and I went to the bank. And I was at the bank for 7 years. And in 1990, it was Rainier Bank, which is named after the big mountain we have in Washington State, Rainier. And in 1990, we were bought by a California bank, and it was no fun. The marketing department wasn't making any of the decisions. The ad agency was in California. So I left there, and I went to work for Children's Hospital as the marketing director there in Seattle. And it was really a lot of fun, but I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, because how do you get more sick kids so that you have more people coming to the hospital? But I found my way. And actually, one of the very first things I did was we were having a nurse recruitment problem. They weren't able to get enough nurses for intensive care. In fact, they had many beds that were empty, not because there weren't kids, but because the hospital didn't have enough nurses. So marketing, of course, helped recruit nurses. But my favorite thing that I did there that led me to social marketing was that we did a campaign to help prevent drowning. It was the second leading cause of unintended death for kids in our state. We have a lot of water. And we did a campaign for drowning, and I went back to one of Kotler's books on social marketing and read that in fact was the discipline that was perfect for getting kids to wear life vests. It's about influencing people to do something that will improve their health, safety, or the environment. And I read that book front to cover, and we developed a drowning prevention campaign, and it was at that point that I knew that that's what I wanted to do forever. And in 1993, I left the hospital and started doing social marketing campaigns for the state of Washington, for our Department of Health, Department of Ecology, and then I started teaching it at the University of Washington. And then I contacted Kotler back in 2000 and said, you know, that book that I used when I was at the hospital, it really could be updated. And so I flew back and met with him, and we outlined and did the second edition of social marketing text. And in your folders, what you have, thanks to Christine, is a 2-page version of the third edition of the book, which is a 400-page book. You've got a 2-page version that she has printed out for you in about 6-point type. Do you want to come? There's some chairs up here if you'd like to come up there. Okay. All right. Well, I take a lot of pictures when I go around looking at social marketing. This still is my favorite social marketing picture. So it's on a dock up in Desolation Sound, which is north of Seattle. And but if you can't read it here, what it says is, please do not drop your cigarette butts on the deck. The fish crawl out at night to smoke them, and we are trying to get them to quit. So I could even talk for 15 minutes and ask you to tell me if you laughed and things, but if there were another sign on a dock nearby that had the classic circle with the cigarette butt in it and the cross there, which one, if you were betting, which one would you bet on? This one or the circle? So let's make this one A. How many would vote for A? Wow. How many would vote for B? Nobody. Okay. Why would you vote for A? Different? Okay. So it's unexpected.
Humor.
Humor.
Positive.
Pardon?
Positive.
Yes, positive. How do you, pardon?
It's the kind of sign you want to show other people.
Yes.
So it's not invisible to you.
Yes.
Sorry.
How do you feel about the person that made that sign?
Sense of humor.
Would you kind of like maybe sit down and have a beer with them there on the dock or something? Well, there's a restaurant, and it's the restaurant owner that did that. And, you know, even though we don't realize it, much of our communications, people respond to who they think the messenger is. And when it is the government, often, it is not the same impact as it is when it's somebody else. And often I will advise public sector agencies not to put their name on it. Because in some ways, that's not who we really want to be doing it for. And so we often don't do that. So we're going to go through the formal definition of social marketing, at least this year's formal definition of it. We change it all the time. It's a process. That's a really important word in here. It's a process that we use that applies marketing principles and techniques, the same ones we use at the bank to sell checking accounts. We use the same exact techniques to create, communicate, and deliver value in order to influence target audience behaviors that benefit society as well as the target audience. Sometimes people think of social marketing as changing behaviors. It actually is a little more complex than that. Sometimes we want people to reject a behavior. What would that mean? What might be an example of something we don't want people to start doing? They're not doing it now, and we don't want them to start doing it. Smoking. Perfect example. How about modify? So they're doing the behavior, but they're not doing it at the level that we would like them to. Pardon? Physical activity. I mean, the health experts tell us, well, they vary between a half an hour, 5 days a week, and 1 hour, 7 days a week. And notice, by the way, that those are behaviors, but there's a price attached to them without you even realizing it. When we say half hour, 5 days a week, that's one price in our mind. 1 hour a day, 7 days a week has another price. And you know what? It's no different in any other marketplace. We will not get an exchange if we don't offer something that has equal value to what it is we have to give up. So that's the fundamental exchange theory. So there are prices attached to our behaviors, even though we don't think of ourselves that way. How about accept? So an accept would mean this person is not doing something, and we want them to start doing it. Today, not doing it, want them to start it tomorrow. Wearing a seatbelt. Great. And the other one would be abandon. So they're doing a behavior, and we want them to discontinue doing that behavior. We want to influence them to reject or to actually abandon that behavior. Smoking. So that comes up a lot. Okay, so just remember though, when we're talking changing behaviors, it could be we're wanting somebody to not do something, or to do more or less of something, or to start doing something or to stop doing something. Let's see if I can do this. So it is about these behaviors, and I want to read this list, and I want you to notice and then tell me what you see as unique about these. Eat, buy fruits and vegetables a day, move right for sirens and light, exercise 30 minutes, don't idle more than 10 seconds, store handguns in a lockbox, keep a litter bag in your car, ride the bus, immunize on time, sort office paper, ask for your chicken without the skin, and know your BMI. The BMI thing, when I was in Singapore 4 years ago, I was really shocked. They want everybody to know their BMI just like your Social Security. Because they're really serious about their country's health, and they were even saying that they thought that they should require elected officials to have to put the BMI on their public information. If we were taking the time to decide what strategy that is, that's a non-monetary disincentive strategy. So what do you notice about this list? Action, what? Command. Yeah, and it looks like a command, but just this is what the marketer would be working with. You're not going to say these things. You're going to say things like 5 a day. So what I want you to notice is, what do you notice about these behaviors? It doesn't say eat healthy, does it? It says eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day. And if we had enough room, I would have said 1/2 cup per serving. It's specific. Absolutely. the behaviors, when we get, as a social marketer, we get down to a very specific behavior. And there's really good reasons for that. If we say, eat healthy, we leave too much open for, you know, your own judgment. I mean, the kids think ketchup. Kids would think count ketchup if we did this. So we want specificity so that our target audience knows what it is that we want them to do. And even more importantly, or at least as important, we can then measure it. So the specificity of the behavior is critical. Drive safe does not say the same thing as don't talk on your cell phone until you get to your destination. Move right for sirens and lights. So the specificity is critical because only then will your audience know what to do and will we know whether or not they've done it. The typical applications for social marketing are in the area of improving health, preventing injuries, protecting the environment, and mobilizing the community. We started off doing a whole lot in the area of health, so that was pretty common. That's pretty much where social marketing got its foundation. And now it's moved into more the environment, and now we recognize the ability that the discipline has to do things like get people to vote. So we moved all the way from health to the community. And I love to keep track of how we're doing in the United States. And so I annually will update a little thing like this that tells me the kinds of things that social marketing can contribute to. So in the area of health, in 2004, every day in the United States, 4,400 youth tried their first cigarette, and the average age was 12. 40,000 women died from breast cancer, and for each one of these, as I read them, see if in your mind you can think of a behavior that will improve that score. 30,000 men died from prostate cancer. Close to 40% of adults age 18 and over had no leisure physical activity. 12,000 infants were born with fetal alcohol syndrome. So can you see for each one of these indicators of behavior that would improve the score? Anybody have one up there that you're not quite sure what we would do to improve that score? Okay. Safety. 3,000 children and teens in the United States died in 2004 from gunshot wounds. Close to 17,000 people were killed in alcohol-related crashes. 10% of high school students in the U.S. attempted suicide. 10%, 1 out of 10. 15% considered it. 10% actually attempted suicide. What can social marketing do about that? What's the role for social marketer in youth suicide? Anybody think of anything? Well, the campaign that we have is Know the Warning Signs, so that friends and parents, if they notice something, they would know what to do. And one of the things to do is to actually ask the teen if they're suicidal. When in fact many parents believe they're worried about asking that because maybe they will be by asking it. When in fact that's the thing to do. So behaviors that we can do for each one of these. Environment. In 2004, 8 million acres burned in the United States. Accidental burnings. 60% of office paper was thrown away, and 4.5 million non-biodegradable cigarette butts were littered. I had to go worldwide to get that trillion, because I really liked the trillion. But 4.5 trillion. You know, I've done focus groups of people who toss cigarette butts out the window, and I've asked them, you know, how long do you think it is before they're like dissolved? And they think it's kind of like banana peels. I mean, they think that it's, I mean, that for us just leafy tobacco. And so, but in fact, does anybody know how long it takes a typical cigarette to degrade? It's like 40 years because of some of the plastic that's in the filter. And in the area of the community, 10 million dogs in 2004 were taken to animal shelters. 7.5 million of them were not adopted. And so this little sign up in the upper right-hand corner is one I got in New York City. And I have found in other places besides New York City, sometimes people don't get it. Some people are already smiling and they got it. But here, did you ever have when you had a loose tooth? and your parents said to you, okay, now, that's it. If it's not out by the end of the day, we're going to tie a string around the tooth, and we're going to tie the string to the doorknob, and then we're going to slam the door. That rope is not attached to his tooth. So, neutering. That's a social marketing thing. One of the cutest signs I ever saw was a vet sign right outside their door on the sidewalk, and it said, "Sexy cat, we fix that." So pet neutering is a social marketing project. More than 5,000 people on the waiting list for organ transplants guide. Getting people to sign up to be an organ donor is a social marketing effort. Only 60% of us voted in our presidential election in 2004. Now, 80% voted in 2008. We had the biggest spike was in the 18 to 24-year-olds that started voting. And but we're still, only 60% of us were participating in this government election. So those are all things that social marketing has and does contribute to. It differs from commercial marketing, from what I did at the bank, in that there, I was responsible for making sure the bank sold all the checking accounts and CDs and mortgages that they wanted to sell for profit to benefit shareholders. At the hospital, the nonprofit marketing, we were there to help promote the services of the hospital as well as to support fundraising. Now, both commercial organizations as well as nonprofit organizations may in fact be involved in a social marketing campaign, because social marketing would be any kind of a campaign, whether it's sponsored by a nonprofit organization, a governmental agency, or a for-profit agency that was doing things to influence behaviors that would benefit the society as well as the target audience. It differs from education in that educators, and I'm one of them so I know, educators can go home when you've got some definitions and some skills and are able to demonstrate that. I can go home and I can feel happy. Social marketers cannot go home and feel happy until they've got people to do something. So the ball that we've got our eye on, which makes it different than education, is that we only count a score when somebody does the behavior that we had in mind. It differs from advertising because advertising is only one of the tools we've got. In fact, it's a subset of one of the tools, the promotional tool. So one day, lots of times I think about, and I can say this is the hardest. Social marketing is the hardest of all marketing jobs. I've done the commercial marketing. I've done the nonprofit marketing. I know that this is the hardest of all. And this is why it's hard. One day I wrote down this list of things, because we don't often have people pay something, but they do in monetary means, but we are asking them to do things like be uncomfortable. So what's something that's good for somebody, but if they do it, they'll be uncomfortable? Exercise. Yes. How about if they do it, it's good for them or somebody else, but they could get rejected. What? I couldn't hear that. Yeah. You know, teens who another teen says, "Hey, you want a puff?" If they say no, they would look like they were sissies. So, or how about taking somebody's keys that you don't think should drive? You could get rejected. How about reduced pleasure? Is this good for you or good for the environment? But it won't be as pleasurable for you as it was before. Condoms? Hey, I've got two 30-year-olds, and they told me when they saw this list one time, "Mom, that's why condoms are so hard for you guys to get ready to use, because it's true for all of these things." you have comfortable, your rejection, you give up looking good, you get embarrassed, go out of your way, you spend more time, you spend more money. And then my son-in-law said, "It's true for your headline, too." Now, here's the real reason it's so hard. That's enough, right? Here's another reason it's really hard. restrooms or Starbucks have something to give somebody in return when they pay. Show me 8 glasses of water yesterday. Show me a healthier fish in Lake Washington because I picked my dandelions versus sprayed them with a pesticide. See, we can't give somebody something. That's what makes it so hard. We definitely can't always do it in the near term. It might be there, but it's long term. It takes a lot of years of exercise before you lose that weight. It's long term return. That's what makes it so hard. And therefore, the marketer's job is to actually create some benefits. They're probably there. We just need to highlight them. We need to show Nancy a healthy fish on a billboard so that I know that I've contributed to that. Or you need to report back on the news that the salmon run is returned. And thank you to all the households in the Seattle area that didn't use fertilizer this year. So we have to either invent them or we have to at least make sure they're really well known. The term social marketing actually first appeared in 1971 in an article that Kotler and Zaltman wrote, talking about how, this marketing thing we do in the commercial sector, I bet it's got a lot of application in promoting causes and in changing behaviors. So for the past 20 years, it's been pretty solidly used in public health, and now we're looking at it more in the environment and in community mobilizing. Who does social marketing? Primarily people who work in governmental agencies. People who, like people in the United States with our CDC, Departments of Health, Departments of Ecology, utilities, the World Health Organization. Those would be the major types of governmental agencies. Oops. Why did I go there? All right. Nonprofit organizations also. American Cancer Society certainly has efforts and energies to get women to get mammograms and men to get prostate exams. The Dental Association, organ donation. So nonprofit organizations, when they are promoting a behavior, are doing social marketing. And then there's foundations who often fund these. For-profit organizations also do social marketing campaigns. There are pharmaceutical companies and certain manufacturers who then do things like our Home Depots, which is a big gardening place that promotes water conservation and does workshops on how to use less fertilizers. And of course, we've got the organic ones to substitute for it so they don't put themselves out of business. But for-profit organizations get involved in this as well. So there are other ways than changing individual behaviors to impact our major social issues. If we take a look at things like technology, well, if we had automatic seatbelts, we wouldn't have to do as much to convince people or promote people to put their seatbelt on if they were automatic. I know that 2 years ago at the Mayo Clinic, they announced that they felt like they had a pill now that would help people quit smoking. So maybe someday we won't need our quit line. And there can be laws banning food advertising, kids' food advertising. That may very well, in fact, help us someday not have to do some social marketing relative to childhood obesity. We can certainly influence things through fines. And we can certainly influence things through greater infrastructures like bike lanes. The social marketer has a role to play here, however. In our state seatbelt campaign, I worked with the legislature to understand that we were at 82% seatbelt usage, and they wanted us to get up to 90%. And the people that I interviewed that weren't wearing seatbelts, and the research that we did, convinced me to then share with them, there's no way you're going to get people to 90% unless you have a primary seatbelt law where you can pull them over if they're not wearing a seatbelt. Because they feel safe. Or they don't feel like it's a big deal. So for you to say, buckle up, we love you, isn't going to move the meter. But if we have a fine, and if people will get pulled over, you'll get your next 8%. So social marketers, who are the eyes and ears of the customer, can be responsible for sharing with the policymakers what it's going to take to move the market. So I'm going to share about 12 principles for success. Things that over the last 15 years that I've learned make these things work well or won't work well. And it's like you could give everybody in this room the same recipe. And we could all go home and follow directions, but it won't all turn out the same. And part of it has to do with some success principles. I'm not going to read them here because they're on each one of these slides. The very first one is to, for sure, take advantage of what's been done before that works. On the left is a poster that is in Washington State. What it says here is, when your pet goes on the lawn, remember it doesn't just go on the lawn. And there's one of our Puget Sound waterways there. And it's telling people to pick up after their pet. Well, I was at an EPA conference about 5 years ago and was out looking on the tables at all the materials, and I saw the one on the right. Remember, you're not just walking the dog, pick up after your pet. Clearly, Michigan, which is the state on the right, had seen the Washington State poster and made it their own, which is fantastic. We can do that in the public sector. When I was at the bank, I couldn't call up my friend at Washington Mutual, who's the marketing director, and say, you know, you've got a really cool poster. Could I just put our bank's name on that poster? I couldn't even call her up and say, hey, how's that Saturday free checking working for you? You can do that in the public sector. That is what's so wonderful. We have this great international listserv, social marketing listserv, that anybody can sign up for. And if you're doing an effort, you can just email this listserv of over, I think we're up to 1,600 people, something like that. And say, has anybody done a campaign to get people to pick up after their pet? You'll get back at least 10 people from around the world who will tell you something they did. So find out what's been done before and use that. Scoop the Poop. Now, I'm a real fan of branding. And I like Scoop the Poop. I think it's fine. Maybe there's a better one. But why can't we use that everywhere? I mean, you get pick up after your pet, pet waste, pet owners. Let's just use Scoop the Poop. And make it around the world so that we know it whenever we see it, just like the P for card. The second principle is to start with target markets that are most ready for action. So let's take blood donation. That would be an example of community mobilization. People who work in blood centers know that it costs about 10 times more to get a new blood donor than it does to keep a current one. So if you could get your current donors to give one more time, in fact, in our area, they've calculated that if we could just get 10% of current donors to donate one more time, they would reach their goal. So they put a lot of their effort and energy in marketing to new customers as well as to current customers. In fact, I mean, you get an email every 6 months from them if you give them your email address. They call you. When you get there the first time, they greet you, and when you're done, they give you cookies and milk. And so they make you feel just wonderful. And they know the other advantage to the current donors is that the person, when they walk in, they know their routine. They also know that their blood is probably lower risk, that they won't have some reaction. And so starting with people and focusing your efforts and energy on a group that is more open to and ready to do the action is one of the very, very important principles. Another one is to promote single, simple, doable behaviors. A colleague of mine, Doug McKenzie-Moore, always says, you got to get it down to the behavior, that there isn't another behavior behind it. So eat healthy has a whole bunch of other behaviors behind it. Eat vegetables even has a whole bunch of other things behind it. Eat 5 fruits and vegetables is even more specific. And then in the fine print, at least a half cup serving. That's what you want to get down to. You want to get down to single, simple, and then also doable behaviors, which means things that people actually are willing to do. Often when we're looking at selecting a behavior for a campaign, we will make an initial list of all the potential ones. And then we'll narrow it down to those that seem pretty singular and simple. But the most important part is to then find out what's the demand for this behavior. How willing are people to do this one? And if it turns out that even though it's single and simple, but people are not willing to do it, it moves to the bottom of the list. So we want to go for things that make all of those. So we've had a campaign probably for about 5 years now in the U.S. called Change a Light, Change the World, where we're getting people to move to compact fluorescent light bulbs. And so they take pledges online. And with the amount of pledges that they got this last year, they calculated 4.7 trillion less pounds of greenhouse gases just from the pledges that were done online. The fourth is to really understand the barriers to behavior change. So there was a day, I remember, when they did not have plastic bags at the airport for you to put your stuff in. And yet they all wanted us to have that stuff all out of our pockets and all out of the things. And so finally they got to, at least the airport where I am, they have plastic bags right there that are the quart-sized bags that you can put your stuff in if you forgot. And I've noticed now that they hardly even ever use them anymore because people are now trained to do this. It's the norm. But that would be understanding why people don't want to do something. And I think I'll talk about this in the next hour, but I love to have people, for a social marketing effort, make a list of at least 10 reasons. I'm sure there's 10. Make a list of at least 10 reasons that your market does not want to do the behavior. And if you're not the market, by the way, you probably won't know what those are. Best to go ask. Make a list of those 10 behaviors. And once you've got that list, I swear, I put it in a very safe place. I mean, I even recommend put it under your pillow and sleep on it. Because it is so precious. If you can find out why somebody doesn't want to do something, you've got inspiration. It is the most inspirational step in the whole marketing process, is to take the time to find out, I wonder why they don't want to do this. I wonder why they're not currently doing it. So the barriers. Remember how I was talking about the marketers have to do a better job of figuring out what benefit there is? There's this great campaign from Chesapeake Bay called Save the Crabs, Then Eat 'em. Spring rains wash excess fertilizer from our area to the Chesapeake Bay where blue crabs have been rapidly disappearing. So skip the lawn fertilizer in the fall. The lunch you save may be your own. So blue crabs are a big deal there in Chesapeake Bay. And what they want, their fertilizer in the spring was killing the baby blue crabs. The nitrates, I think it is, that got into the water there were harmful for these baby crabs. So they wanted them to skip spring fertilizer and only fertilize in the fall. And when I first saw this, I thought, they understand WIFM. Did you know everybody listens to the WIFM has the biggest market share, even here in Ireland? Did you know that? It does. It's got the biggest market share. Everybody's listening to WIFM. You know what it stands for. What's in it for me? We're all listening to that. Even those of us who think we may even have a big heart, we're listening to WIFM. We're listening to what's in it for the world or for my cause. So we're all listening to WIFM. So we have got to tune in. And we've got to play on WIFM. And we've got to create benefits for the person whose behavior you're trying to change. Woo! Sometimes this thing goes backwards on me. So here's some of the other parts of their promotion. So that's a bumper sticker on the top, and the lunch you save may be your own, and protect the crab population, and spring fertilizing helps grow our dependence on Louisiana. You know, Seattle, where I live, we're really known for our salmon. And so I'm on an effort to get a campaign in Washington on Save the Salmon, Then Eat Them. So we can borrow that. The sixth principle is to use all tools in the toolbox. The product, the price, the place, and the promotion. And when we talk in the next hour after break, we'll talk about why that sequence is really important. But a couple of examples of this. I know when I was in Cape Town, South Africa, about 6 years ago, and I was teaching there at the University of Cape Town. There was a student who told me, wondered if I knew about their program called Toot and Scoot. Yeah, do you have Toot and Scoot here? You do? Do they call it that?
No, just want to call it the same person.
So cool. This is so cool. So if their target market were people who were driving, professionals, who would go out after work, working professionals who go out to work, go to dinner, go to a game, drinking, and then drive home. And what they wanted them to do, for years, was call a taxi. So what's a barrier to somebody who's gone to a restaurant after work to calling a taxi to go home versus drive a car? Like, absolutely. I need my car tomorrow morning. I mean, I have to take a taxi back there. And then where's the car going to be that night? And so, of course, people don't take their taxi home when they're driven. So, this was in Johannesburg. They saw this thing. What they did was they got these scooters that are collapsible. And what you do is you call Toot and Scoot. And they come out on a scooter, and they collapse the scooter, and they put it in the trunk of the car. Then they drive the person home, and then they get their scooter out of the trunk, and then they wave off and go home. I understand that it was about $15 US dollars. But, I mean, a DUI could be $900. And this program is very successful there. But see, many marketers usually think of, let's just promote not drinking and driving. See, that's not words very rarely, I have found, very rarely move the market very much. They can help, and they can make sure people know about a program like Toot and Scoot. But we need products. We need services in order to really often overcome the barriers. So that's why that barriers list is so important, and that's why all tools in this toolbox are important to get the behaviors we want changed. So I often try to work really hard to think, I know we want people to exercise more, or walk every day, or actually, well, the Department of Health wanted us to start walking 10,000 steps a day. I was proud of them for the specificity. That's good, very specific, 10,000 steps a day. I know what you want, and but how am I going to know if I did it? So a barrier to taking 10,000 steps a day, besides time and all those other things, well, how far have I already gone? Because you see, if a person was really intended to do 10,000, and it was dinner time, and they'd only done 8, it would inspire them to take a quick walk for the 2,000. So for the people that intended the behavior, we need to give people things like speedometers. I would really like it if car manufacturers would have a device so that when we take off on a work trip to go to the grocery store or to pick up a kid from the soccer game, that we actually plug in, when we get our gas, we enter in the dollar amount we spent for the gas. And when we get home, we push a little button, and it tells us how much that trip cost us. See, we do not give people feedback. Typically people want to do the right thing. And yet we're not giving them a speedometer. I'm thinking someday, this is really far off, someday we'll have a little microchip that will tell us how many calories we've had that day. And so when we're ordering dinner, or thinking about dinner, we go, oh my gosh, I'm already up to 1,500. I think I'll just have a salad. So, someday, that's my dream. That's my dream. You know, and that's an infrastructure. That's technology. Because I do think we want to do the right stuff. I do think we want to be healthy and safe and protect the environment. We're not giving people the things that they need in order to make the decisions that would make that happen. What's a barrier in our state? 0.08 is anything above 0.08. What is it here? Same? 0.08? Okay, I thought it might have been higher. So 0.08. Okay. So what's a barrier? So I've been out to dinner, I've been at a party, and what's a barrier to not driving if I'm over 0.08? How do you know you're 0.08? Well, by golly, they had these little test strips at my grocery store one day. They're like a little matchbook, and you open it up and you put the test strip on your tongue for 20 seconds, and it turns a shade. And on the back of that, there's a little color wheel. And if it's dark brown, it means you're above 0.08. And if it's light brown, it means it's right around there. And if it's not at all, you're just fine. So this is giving somebody a mechanism so that they could make the choice that they would want to make. And then I read in the paper one day that our policemen in one town in the Seattle area went to all of the pubs and bars in their town on St. Patrick's Day and passed them out, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, even if it isn't just that one time only, it's at least telling people that this mechanism is available. One of my favorite ones that our county did for reducing the use of pesticides is this bug book. So I'm going to open it up for you. This is what it looks like, kind of kind of like paint chipped, right? So I have 4 grandkids, and one is my grandson. He is 10, and he tells me I embellish the story. So I told him I promised I would tell you that I embellish it. But he has the 2 cousins, granddaughters that are 6 and 8. He loves to take them out into the garden, and he says, "Let's go look for bugs." No, come on, let's go look for bugs. We're going to get Nanny's bug book, and we're going to go look for bugs. And we're going to find the good bugs, because what they want us to do is to keep the good bugs. And they want us to kill the bad bugs. So if you find one of these bugs, you leave it. And if you don't, if the bug doesn't look like this, you get to kill it. So they'll take it out there. He takes it out there, and they'll go, so then he'll go through here, and then he goes, it's just a centipede. Centipedes prey on pests and insects in the soil, including slugs, worms, and fly pupae. Centipedes kill their prey with venom. It's a good bug. That centipede's a good bug. And so then he'll go around and he'll look for it, and then if it isn't on here, that's when he loves it. Because he goes, aha, you can kill this one. But a bug book. Now, you see, a brochure would not have gone out to the garden. It needed to be like a product. Something tangible that would be kept around to help people make the decisions that we want them to make. Now, what's missing on here, this cost the county about $2.50. What's missing on here that I'll talk about on Monday, what's missing on here is Home Depot as a corporate sponsor. I mean, after all, they sell garden supplies. They should be paying for this, not the taxpayers. Had a hole cut in her throat because she could no longer, she had to do that to breathe. And she continued to smoke out of that hole. And when I tested about 39 different existing campaigns with kids, teenagers in our state, this was the one that freaked them out the most. And I said to them, I said, well, why that one? Oh my gosh. You know, these are like juniors in high school. Oh my gosh. You know, tobacco, it must be addictive, or she wouldn't be smoking out of her neck. They had been reading it was addictive since they were in 4th grade. When they saw Debbie smoking out of her neck, they believed it. There's a distinction in marketing we make between knowing something and believing. Knowing is just like information, and belief is, I'm convinced. 1 out of 3 people will die from tobacco. Believing it'll happen to you is a whole nother step. And so those kids said, oh my gosh, it's so addictive. She's smoking out of her neck. That is so gross. That's what matters to them. In fact, when we test things like you'll die early, you know, like take 6, 7, 8 years off your life, they don't care. Because they don't think 80-year-olds are having any fun anyway. So just emphasize that you're going to die earlier, that's not the right price. The right price is a hole in your neck. That's the right price. And so this was an actual ad in California, an anti-smoking ad in California. So access convenient is a really important principle. So here's a mud mitt. Of course, what's missing to here is the brand Scoop the Poop. I wish they had it. And this, by putting these mitts, not only did it make it convenient for people who forgot. Do you have mud mitts in your parks? Oh my gosh. It's such a good idea. It's such a good idea. Because it's not just having a bag available that makes us be more likely to pick up after the pet. It's the fact that it's there. If we call it taps what we call the social norms theory. And it says, this is what's expected. In fact, I'll share this with you. I hesitate because this is on tape. Well, I'm going to share this with you. You're such a lovely cat. I was walking my dog, Happy. It's hard to say that name without crying out. My dog, Happy. We were walking downtown, Mercer Island, where I live, around this park. And the park was about as big from here over there. So it was a big thing walking around. And I thought she'd already gone. And she wants to go again. And I did not have a bag. And this receptacle was way over there on that other side. And I didn't even think for a split second. I bent down, What do you think I did? Did someone say that they thought I picked it up? No, it's worse than that. I picked the dog up. I pretended that I did. That said to me that moment that I thought that I believed it was a norm to pick up after the pet. I was so humilified. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in Seattle. What is the word? I was so humiliated that I didn't have it, that I pretended that I did. That is social norm. When we are so convinced that this is what you're supposed to do, and that's what we want to create in social marketing. We want to create that this is the norm, and if you don't do it, you're going to look funny. You're going to look out of place. So we want to make access convenient. And New York City, which has 3% of our population in the United States, has 18% of the HIV/AIDS cases. And this is increasing. And increasingly, it's within those populations, the Black, Latinos, and women, as well as the poor. Since 1971, that city, like most cities, has offered free condoms at community clinics. Walk in, we'll give you free condoms. But to do something more, and I'm really proud of New York, and I think it has a lot to do with their mayor. But they now have a new brand. They've created their own condom brand. It's called it's called Get Some. Their brand for their condoms, New York City's branded condoms, Get Some. And the slogan is grab a handful and go. I think this is pretty bold. But you have to, any business owner, regardless of the type, but primarily these people call in, they dial 311, and the city will hand deliver however many condoms they want to their establishment. So be it bathhouses or tattoo parlors or bars or nail salons, they'll deliver the condoms and then they'll distribute these Get-Somes at those places of business. And they've gone from 2.5 million being distributed in the clinics to now 18 million a year being distributed through this program. Number 10, practice effective communication techniques. This is just a little sign I saw on a little lake in Tennessee. 113 persons have drowned in this lake. Wearing life jackets, 0. Not wearing life jackets, 113. That's altering that belief. We know life jackets help, but how about convince me that it makes a difference? Oh, every once in a while just likes to go back. Now it's really going back. Our seatbelt campaigns in many of the states in the United States is click it or ticket. I mean, that's the campaign. It isn't very sweet, like buckle up, we love you. It's aimed at the target market, which are people who will only buckle up if they think they'll get caught and fined. They also have a campaign called Booze It and Lose It, and speed a little, lose a lot. And therefore, we need to have stuff that's easy to remember. Branded stuff that's easy to remember. 99% of people surveyed in the state, including kids over the age of 6, know the slogan, click it or ticket. Now, I like concrete, too. There's a very good book, in case I forget to mention it, called Made to Stick. Have you seen it? It's a great new marketing book, Made to Stick, by the Heath brothers. It came out, I think, 2 years ago. And on Amazon, it's about $25. And it really talks about the principles for why do some things really stick with us and work? And why do others just slide off and we forget what the slogan is in a year? And if we have time, I'll go through some of the principles they talk about. Definitely, in terms of communication, clear and specific is very good. So if we want people to leave their towels on the rack in the hotel, there's one sign. Now here's another one. Which one do you think are people going to respond to? See if I can get you to go back. Okay, go back to previous. Now won't do. So you remember the other one? Let's make that A, and this is B. Which one?
There you go.
Okay. Why?
Picture.
Yeah. You know who's going to read this? You know, we'll talk about this later on the next hour. The Greens are going to read this. The people, the environmental people, like tree huggers are going to read this. In fact, and that's wasted because they were going to leave a note anyway. Communication techniques, credible messengers. This is an abstinence campaign. Sex with one partner can still be group sex. These are pubic lice. Although I learned when I was in Oklahoma giving a talk, someone said, Nancy, in Oklahoma we don't call them pubic lice. In Acton we call them crabs. She said we call them crotch crickets. But this is an abstinence campaign paid for by the state. But we're not going to put the state Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction on there as a messenger. No, we're going to put the other kids in the high school's name on there. Mercer Island Teens for Delaying Sex. I want us to have more fun in social marketing. Just because we work for the government doesn't mean we can't have fun. Using prompts and sustainability. Using prompts is a very important way to get people to remember to do something. It won't change their mind, but it'll help them remember. This was in Singapore. They have those all over to get that BMI down. On storm drains. A reminder at the last minute that what goes down the drain goes straight to the water, so don't dump your oil here. I really thought it was really wonderful that Pampers, the baby diaper manufacturer, printed on the newborn diapers, right on the fastener, printed back to sleep, because back to sleep is what we should do in order to prevent, it's one of the preventions for SIDS. So they printed it right on the strip so that the caregiver and the parent would know, remember, to be sure to put the baby on their back to sleep. And we've got a big movement in the U.S. now to get people not to get paper bags and plastic bags. I know that you've had a major campaign here. I know that plastic bag used to be your flag. Is that what I heard? That's what we heard. So they try to get us to bring our cloth bags. Well, one of the biggest barriers we've got is what? I've got 5 of them. I only remember them every once in a while. It's really embarrassing. And so it's remembering. So now our city council said they're going to do like they did like you guys did here in Ireland. We're going to start charging people for these bags. I think we could have done something before then. I think we could have. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip quite yet. I think we could have the clerk say, Nancy, did you bring your bag today? No. I bet you I'll remember it tomorrow if she does that. Instead of saying paper or plastic, did you bring your bag today? Is a prompt that will make it more likely that you will do it the next time. They actually are putting signs in the parking lots now. Don't forget your bag. Because as you get out of the car, they're there in the bag. So that's getting a little better. But I think the guilt thing would really set in if the checkout person actually said that to me. In a tobacco campaign that I worked on, we had the teenagers give their parents who were smoking around them, give them their photo to put inside their cigarette pack to remind them not to smoke around them, along with a whole bunch of other data that we gave them about the harm to kids. And then commitments and pledges work. I have read anywhere from 25% to 50% increase to 4 times increase if you get people to pledge that they will do something. Signing our name has magic in it. And I think it's because, I remember a course that in psychology or anthropology talking about archetypes. You know, there's an archetype to our signature. When we were in first grade or kindergarten and we learned to write our name, clearly somebody, be it the teacher or your parent, clapped for you. Oh, yay! So we have a very positive association with writing our name. And when we make a commitment or a pledge, we attach it to that honor that we have for writing our name. If we can get people to sign something saying we will do it, we will increase the chances that they will. And in fact, for this campaign for not smoking around the kids, we had a 20% increase in people who then stopped smoking around their kids in their homes or stopped smoking around their kids in their cars because they signed that pledge that said that they wouldn't do that. The last principle is to use a sequential planning process. If you're like everybody else I know and work with, we always want to go to the slogan. We want to go to, what's the phrase going to be? Or at least we go to, what's the brochure going to look like and what colors are we going to use? And what's the billboard going to say? When in fact, we've got to start with about 5 steps of homework before we even ever get to our strategy. And then we've got about 3 steps before we get to promotion. We've got product, price, and place. So this is a process. It starts with a lot of homework, and then we open up the toolbox, and we use the first 3 Ps before we ever get to communication. And that's what we're actually going to cover after the break. So it's a quarter of about each time for you to take a break.
Yeah, well, if I've been listening to Nancy correctly, and she said about behaviours, simple, and break the behaviours down. So I said, okay, I'd like you to walk from here, lecture hall 1. I'd like you to have a cup of tea or coffee, and if you need to check in on your mobile, do that too.
My dating service. I wanted to get into the planning model, and I want to say just a couple of things. First of all, on this sheet that you have, this is an outline of that model. I was able to tuck, I think, 14 books in my suitcase, and they are out there at the front. So if you want the 400-page version of this paper, and we'll go through each of these steps. I will try to wrap it up by about 10 of, so that in case there's some questions you've got. But I'll also be around during lunchtime. And I welcome any of the questions you've got, or even any challenges you've got based on our morning's discussion or on this discussion. So this is a map, obviously, of the United States. Washington State is up there in that upper left-hand corner. And a bunch of us back there in that state are playing a game. And the game that we want, this is including our government, the game we want is for Washington State to be number 1 in the country on about 25 indicators, which we have written down, 25 indicators in the area of health, safety, and environment, and community participation. And we're doing that game. And there's 4 stories I'm going to share with you that we're doing well on, we feel very good about. But we're not necessarily number 1 in the country. But it's how we're playing the game. So I'm going to share 4 stories with you that actually use this 10-step model so I think it's a good way for me to walk you through them. The first one will be related to tobacco cessation. The second one, pedestrian safety. The third one, HIV/AIDS prevention. And the 4th one, litter prevention. So the 10-step model, I'm actually in this little diagram here and marrying it for you with research. So up on the upper right-hand corner, at about between noon and 1 o'clock, we have the describe the plan, background, purpose, and focus. Then we go to conducting a situation analysis, and then we go to selecting our target markets. And the most common, not the only, but the most common kind of research we use at that point is literature review and colleague interviews to help us at least zero in on target populations. We then use, moving on down here to the next 4, 5, and 6, we use formative research to help us develop those strategies. We use formative research to help us set our behavior objectives and goals. We use it to help identify the target market barriers, motivators, and the competition we've got for the behavior we want. We use it to craft our positioning statement. And then we use formative research to help come up with ideas for our strategies. Then we use pretest research. Once we've come up with some ideas, we use pretest research to test those ideas. To see, like I was telling you about with the youth tobacco campaign, 39 campaigns around the country, we're pretesting them to see which one of those would be the most effective with the youth that we're targeting. And then we move on to internal assessment type research, where we use internal records and other forms to outline a plan, to determine our evaluation plan, and to establish our budgets, and then to do our implementation plan. So I just wanted to show where often we have the research marrying these steps in the planning process. And as always, the old target market is right there in the middle of all of that. There's been some fun discussion lately about the terminology target market. It's controversial on the listserv. Some of the options that people are wanting, let's go there's not target because it sounds too much like war. So we're not using the word target, we're using priority. And market sounds a little too commercial, and so we're often moving to audience. So whatever your leaning is, you can use priority audience if you're not comfortable with target market. But I grew up on target market, and so it's hard for me to switch from there. But that's often the word now being used as priority audience. So for each story that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share the background, the purpose, and the focus for that plan, who our target audience was, what our behavior that we wanted, the barriers that we identified, and the theory that really guided and inspired us. I'll talk about the 4 Ps being used for each story in the toolbox, and then I'll give some results, and where we can, this is my latest theme that I've been talking about a year now, which is to really speak to the return on the investment. We spent $1, what did it do for us? So the first story, tobacco cessation. So in Washington State in the year 2000, so 9 years ago, we had 1 million adult users. We have a population of about 6 million, so we had close to 20%, 22% almost, that were using tobacco. It was costing us an estimated $1,800 per smoker per year. And that's just looking at the taxpayers' costs, not the individual's cost in addition to that. So it was costing the taxpayers in healthcare-related costs $1,800 a year. The purpose of this effort was to reduce the number of users. Our focus was on a quit line. If I had a lot of time to go through the planning model with you, I would emphasize in great detail the distinction between purpose and focus. Purpose is like, not exactly at the world peace level, but it's at the, well, what good are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to reduce tobacco use. Now, if you look at that way up here, there's multiple strategies that we could use to do that. We could double the price. We could make it not accessible except with doctor's prescription. There's all kinds of things that we could do. We could do campaigns to let heavy smoking out of our life. This campaign's focus was on a quit line, and the reason was that they did a survey and shared with me this research that showed that of those million people who were smoking, 70% of them wanted to quit. Now, from a marketing perspective, that is incredible. 70% of the people want to do what it is we want them to do. And so something was clearly missing. Something that, as we looked at what other states were doing, was a quit line. A quit line for people to actually call and get help to quit. So so behavior we wanted was for people to call the quit line. And the theory that inspired this campaign was the stages of change theory. Many of you may be familiar with this. It has 7 steps to it, but Alan Andreessen in Georgetown, he condensed it to 4, and I really think this communicates pretty well. So the stages of change theory says that if you have somebody over here, and over there is you wanting them to do the behavior, many people are way back here. And we call them the pre-contemplators. I think of that group as people relative to what I want. They're sound asleep. They might have woken up in the past, and something woke them up. But they looked at this behavior and they go, and went back to sleep. And the reason could be that they, first of all, they don't think it's a problem. Their grandparents smoked until they were, and ended up 99 years old and still healthy. So it's not a big deal. Or, yeah, maybe, but I'll probably quit. In fact, I read an article in your paper on the airplane that said that there was this new finding that was being promoted here in Ireland that if you quit at the age of 60, you still have a good chance of not getting lung cancer, even if you smoked all your life. So somebody might read that article. That might lead them to contemplation. So in the sleep analogy, they're awake. They go, so I thought maybe I might as well just keep smoking forever because it doesn't make any difference. But I just read this article that says that, my gosh, if I quit now, I still have a good chance of not getting lung cancer. That makes me want to think about that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm quitting yet. It means I'm sitting up, I'm wide awake. You got my attention. So those are the contemplators. And those were the people that we were targeting with this campaign. The inaction people are already trying to quit. They may have cut down, they may have buried their cigarettes in the backyard. They're doing stuff already. They're out of bed. And the maintenance people have quit. That doesn't mean that there isn't something for the marketer to do with each one of these areas. With the free contemplators, we have to continue to try to make them work. We have to continue to do things. If we find a new finding like the 60-year-old thing, we can use that to get them to wake up. And the contemplators, we've got things to do for them. We've got to get rid of the barriers. See, they want to do it. They've just got some considerations and concerns. So this is the group that we understand better. The inaction people, the people that are starting, the job for us there is to reward them and to recognize and to encourage them, just like Weight Watchers does. So when we get people moving, we encourage and we recognize and reward. And then when they're in maintenance, we continue to acknowledge and show them the advantages of doing. In fact, sometimes we showcase them so that they're an inspiration to others. So that's the maintenance. So let's go through the 4 P's on this campaign. Product. The product in this case is that quit line. And when you call, you get a quit counselor. Most of the counselors are people who used to be smoking and are not now. So they're able to listen with compassion. The quit plan is another part of the product. They will actually help them create a plan online, and then they could work with them or send it to them. They have a kit of resources that they send to them, and they have they let them know of other places in the community where they might be able to go for support groups or even for subsidized medications. So that's our product. Price. Well, it doesn't cost anything to call the quit line. If it did, it would have that price on it. But it's free. The counselor is free. You can call any number of times. You don't charge if you call more than once. The quit plan is free. And there's an online calculator that can be used. So, I know it's hard to read from there, but let me show you how this works. In fact, I meant to get out my little laser thing here, and I've got it. So you go into this online calculator, and what it's meant to do is it's meant to make it much more clear to people that there is a cost, and what that cost is. Smoking. Besides the health things. So up here, it says, how many cigarettes do you smoke per day? So I entered in 24. How much do you spend on a pack of cigarettes? I entered in 6. How many years have you smoked? I entered in 30. I hit calculate now, and it came, for so far, smoking's financial toll for you is $78,340. That would chuck. Every year, smoking costs you $2,628. If you quit now, in 5 years, you will save $13,140. Simple online website-based calculating thing that makes the price, the cost, actually much more vivid and personal for the person. So we go to place. Place is access. It isn't where we put our materials or our messages. It's how they access the product. 7 days a week, 5 in the morning to 9 at night. You can leave a message on that phone line and they'll call you back the next day. It's after 9 o'clock. They have a website with that worksheet that you saw. You can also, on the website, click a place on the website, enter your phone number, and a quit line counselor will call you at a time that you say you want them to call you. If you're at your doctor's office and you've had a discussion with your doctor and you decide it's time to quit, the doctor can, with your permissions, fill out a form, fax it to the quit line, and then a counselor will call the patient at a designated time. So that's place. Promotion. So remember, these people are people who want to quit. They already know it's not good for them. We don't need to emphasize for them that they're killing themselves and they'll die young. What we want to do is encourage them and to make them feel like they'll be understood and assure them that they're doing the right thing and to hold their hand. They do not want to be spanked, they want their hand held. The media channel, so this says, you can't rely on cold turkey milk. See, this is speaking to this contemplators who maybe tried a couple of times. I mean, they've probably tried, and they're probably a little discouraged. That's why the most important thing to do is to encourage them to call. So television spots and outdoor spots and posters and brochures and wallet cards and bar posters and workplace activities and publicity were used, all of those media channels. And so I'm not sure why it's going like this. We must be doing something wrong here. Just a minute. Oh, I think I accidentally hit that thing. There we go. So now let's look at the results and the return on investment. 7 years after the phone line was launched, they received their 100,000 call. 13% of the people who called actually quit. It cost us, when we looked at the cost for the quit line and all those materials, and divided that and only assigned that as a burden to the people, the 13% that quit, it cost us $830 for each person that quit. The state savings per quit, remember, is $1,800 a year. We have 235,000 fewer smokers in the state. We've gone from 22% to 17% users. And we've gone from 20th to 5th in the nation. So we got a 6-month payback on our $830. Now, we're not number one, but California is number 2 in the nation. So if California's number 2, what should Washington State Department of Health people be doing? Whatever they're doing. Absolutely. Exactly. It's not against the law to copy what the other state's doing, like it would have been if you were a copyright. Actually, Utah is number 1 in our country, and that's because I think it's about 60% Mormon population. I think they need a handicap because it's not fair. Number 1. Okay. Any questions about the quit line before I move on to pedestrian safety?
Was that the only action? Was that done in isolation? Quit line was drug activity alongside that?
You know, they have a lot of tobacco stuff, but it was where most of the marketing dollars were going, was for the quit line. And we've also created some legislation that I know has been very helpful. We have the 25-foot rule now, where you have to be 25 feet away in a public place from the door. So there's no longer any smoking in any bars or restaurants, 0. And you have to be 25 feet away from the door of a building or a restaurant when you're smoking, 25 feet. And actually, where was I? Oh, Portland, Oregon is 75 feet. And California was the first one. California was the first one to do the 25-foot rule. And that was how we got it passed. We just showed the legislature, look what they've got. Their smoking rates are down in 16%. You want to do that? Great, then do a 25-foot rule. It worked in California. Any other questions about the quit line? Yeah.
Was the budget holder saving the same budget holder that expended on the project? Did the state own the health budget as well?
You mean because we reduced healthcare costs? Did the state reduce? I doubt it. It would have been good if we did. No, I don't think so. In fact, we've got a huge budget crisis in the state right now, so as all states do. But no, I don't believe we did. That'd have been nice. Probably would have just gone towards other things that weren't getting fully funded the way that they should be.
But the state saved the money from that. There was a study done that showed that savings were made in the health budget.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
If you just make between time, money spent now might be saving the budget for 10 years' time. So you say that $880 said in 6-7 years' time only.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at the time which you spent the $880.
That's true. Yes.
Well, Nancy, I'm just interested in translation of social marketing campaigns across cultures and different contexts. Maybe something that might have worked in, say, Washington, D.C., in its translation to Argentina, for example. And, what are the are there cultural barriers to the type of campaigns you can run?
Absolutely. There was a seatbelt campaign in North Carolina. North Carolina is a what we would call a red state in Washington State. very conservative and fairly, I want to say strong, government-oriented, never would have worked in Washington State. Washington was very liberal and very independent, and so they had a campaign called Click It or Ticket, but our campaign looked very different than theirs, even though we used the slogan Click It or Ticket. All the images looked different, all of the messages were different because of the cultural differences between them. Absolutely. Pedestrian safety. There's a little town called Kirkland that's on a lake in Seattle, on Lake Washington. And for about 10 years, they had these flags at crosswalks. So here's the flag right here. This is was an orange flag, and what people were to do is when they get to the corner here, they pick up the flag, they pull it out of the holder, they carry it across, and then they put it in the holder on the other side. And they do that so that the cars will see them. Somebody, I know you're already laughing. So somebody in that city had been to Japan in 1996, came back to the city of Kirkland Council and said, we should have these. They work really well in Japan so that people saw me and this would reduce the amount of pedestrian injuries that we have. And so I talked to them about what they could do to increase their flags. And they were, the target audience were the people who walk, it's like a little shopping town. And it was the people who worked downtown and who shopped downtown. The behavior that we wanted specifically was for people to pick up that flag and use it every time they walked across the crosswalk. That's what we wanted. So let's look. Here's what inspired that. Well, my first question was, well, how many people are using it now? Who's using it? Who doesn't use it? Who does? Doer, non-doer analysis is so fantastic. What you want to do is you want to look at the people currently doing the behavior and compare them to the people not doing the behavior. That's often one of the most brilliant insights you'll ever have. Oh my gosh, that's because it might be an age thing, it might be a psychographic. Something makes the doer different than the non-doer. Commercial marketers do that all the time. How are my customers unique? How come they're buying my brand? And who's buying the competitor's brand? And what makes them different? So we look at who's using it and who's not using it. When do they use this flag? Why are they using this flag? And why aren't they using the flag? So I hired a student from the University of Washington to sit in this town for a month and to sit at all those crosswalks. And luckily, there were little stores in front of the crosswalk often. And she could sit like at Starbucks, or she could sit at a Ben & Jerry's ice cream, or she could sit at a pizza place. And near the window, and she'd have her little thing, and she would calculate how many people were using the flags. And so she saw 3,090 pedestrians crossing those crosswalks. And 267 flags were used. Now, if you divide 267 by 3090 by 267, you don't get 11. That's because sometimes one flag is covering two people. So 11% of the pedestrians were covered by a flag. The city of Kirkland, they want 40%. As a marketer, I always have to know, well, where's the bar? Well, because if they had just said, I want 15%, we would have done one kind of strategy. They said they wanted 40%, which tells 4 times the number of people using the flag. We've got to use all 4 Ps. We're never going to get there with a little bit more signage. So the research showed that I was really surprised to find out. Well, I wasn't surprised actually to find out that the kids were using them the most, 71%. I also wasn't surprised to find out that those over 60 were also using them the most. They didn't care how they looked. But look at this. Look at this. Males were using it at about the same as females. Now, I was surprised by that one. And then the teenagers, she said the teenagers, they were just, look like this, waving the flag, having a lot of fun with it. So that gave us a little bit of a sense that actually what it told me was that we're really kind of after all the demographics. We don't have just a senior citizen thing, we don't have just a kid thing, and we don't have a lot of gender differences. The barriers, though. So, actually, I bet One of the biggest barriers was that they only had 6 flags at each crosswalk. And what happened is in the morning, everybody would take all the flags from one side and the other side. And so, I mean, that was like an easy thing she found out during this observation research, that there were not enough flags on the side. The second thing was what are they for? People would say, well, I didn't take up, she would interview one person an hour, I'm sorry to tell you. I forgot to tell you that. She would stop one person an hour and interview them and say, you know, I noticed that you used one of these flags. What are some of the reasons? What are they for? Because those orange flags actually looked to me like the first time I saw them, they looked like they were telling me, the driver, that there was a crosswalk there. It was flagging the crosswalk. It wasn't necessarily intended for the person to carry. And so that was a barrier. The holder was really hard to use. I had to get on my tiptoes to actually put the flag back in there. Normal people wouldn't have to, but I had to put the flag back in there. And so it was hard to use. And most people, actually probably the number one thing was this, fine, I feel safe. It's no big deal. I'm seeing many of you probably would have told her this one. I feel like I look really silly. And it takes too much time. I mean, it takes 2 seconds at least to come over here and pull it out of here, and then another 2 seconds over here on the other side. I'm trying to get to work. I didn't even see them. I didn't even notice the flags. So now again, see, I love these. You can get a good barriers list. Often you do feel discouraged. You feel like they're lucky they got 11%. But a really good barriers list, when you look at it the second time, is inspiring. And I'll show you how it inspires. First of all, we decided the orange flag had to go. That the orange flag actually turned out to be the official ski boat flag on the lake right there, so that you have to, like when someone's skiing and they're down in the water, you got to put a flag up. It was the official flag for that. And so kids, the Ben and Jerry's people told me that the kids would come up from the ski boats and grab those flags and take them down to their boat and never return them. Price. Well, there isn't anything relative to monetary, but often in social marketing, we look at how can we recognize. Well, they have a program, and my granddaughter was the recipient of it. She walked across the crosswalk with her flag. She's 6. She walked across, and this worker at the Ben and Jerry's, who we got Ben and Jerry's and all those other stores to be Adopt a Crosswalk partner. She walked across, and one of them ran out and gave her a coupon for free ice cream, saying, "Good job! You took that flag." So then, of course, other kids who saw that didn't start doing And then across Cold Creek Pizza, where the pizza place was, they came out and gave them a discount coupon for a pizza because they used the flag. So we're using recognition, which is a price tool. It's a non-monetary price tool. Those were the partners that the program created. So these are our Adopt a Crosswalk partners. Ben and Jerry's, a pizza place. This is a wine tasting place. And so the place strategy, access. The place tools to improve access. So I already mentioned that we created a bucket, and that improves access. And then we made it a new standard to have 18 flags at every crosswalk. Not 6, but 18 flags at every crosswalk. And this is the slogan, which is getting into promotion. But, well, the actual slogan was "Take it to make it." But remember the people who felt safe? Remember the people barrier, "I feel safe"? 62 people have been killed or injured in crosswalks in Kirkland. Not carrying a flag, 62. Carrying a flag, 0. Does that remind you of anything you saw earlier? Just stole that from that little sign on the lake in Tennessee. And then promotion, we had drink coasters. "Take it to make it" was the slogan. And 62 people, if you flipped it over, then that was where the other part of the slogan was. And then there were posters in the Adopt a Crosswalk Partners retail stores. There was a banner, "Take it to make it." There was a prompt. Remember how important prompts are? Well, a prompt in this case was right at the crosswalk when he's right to step into it, a little reminder, "Take it to make it." He's in the process there of stenciling it onto the cement. 5 months after the campaign was launched, the same month that was measured the year before, We saw 438 flags used, same student measuring. So we had a coverage of 18.5%. So it was a 68% increase in that period of time. Now remember, they want this number to be 40%. And so what I really think, if they're serious about it, what I really believe they probably need to do is to get a bunch of seniors and some volunteers to stand at those crosswalks for probably several months and just hand them to people as they go across, so that it starts to get to be a norm. That's probably what will happen. Any questions about that before I move to the next one?
Would hygiene ever have been an issue?
With the wooden handle, yeah, possibly. It could be. We haven't heard of any problems with that, but yes, it could be. And I would hope that they're probably checking that pretty regularly. They're really good about making sure there's 18, and yeah, flags get stolen. The orange flags are stolen much more than these. The orange flags being the official ski boat flag, and construction flag not getting stolen as money. Any other questions about that? Yes.
Why did they choose 40%? Like, how did they find that target, or did they just use that number?
How do they choose 40%? You know, they were really shocked when I wanted them to do that. And I had to say to them what I said to you. You know, if you don't give me that, then we don't know how much strategy we need. If you just said 15%, that would lead us towards doing a few things. So what do you want? And the head of the city manager said, I want 40%. That's how. By the way, the science is very important here, because the science had shown that cars and vehicles were 60% more likely to stop for a flag. And that was in other states that they had tested this. So the Department of Transportation, even in Washington, D.C., was wanting people to do this. Now there's other strategies. There's in-pavement lighting, there's lights across the top, there's all kinds of strategies, and this is one. This is one of many strategies that people are using.
Is that widespread in the US, these flags across walkways?
Are they what?
Are they widespread across America in
No.
states?
No, they're not. And I think that we probably are the only ones that have to look like this. Washington, D.C. has orange ones, and I think that New York does, and there may be other places, but I just haven't noticed. But no, it's not widespread.
Because I think the city can still have a few.
Yeah.
Pick up the flag.
You know, I think actually what we should get to is a brand new product that's really small and collapsible. And just, you know, it's like a little thing, like a little umbrella that you have in your purse. And there are streets when you wouldn't feel silly at all. You'd be glad you had one. Going across like 4 lanes or something like that. And so we should have little flags like that, probably. I bet we will have them someday, yes.
Was there any danger that people use them to cross the road when it wasn't safe? I'm just thinking of blind grandfather I had, quite sticky. Put it out there. And he walked. You know? And he thought this was going to stop everyone.
So you worried that unintended consequences that people would feel safe?
Yeah.
And so they would say, they're going to stop for me, I've got this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think that would be a possibility. But as I always say when we look at unintended consequences, I say, well, you know, let's test it. And if the benefit still outweighs the cost, then we may have to put up with that. That's why pilots are great. HIV/AIDS testing. In one of the counties in Washington State, and as many of you may know as well, people who have HIV/AIDS, the statistics in the U.S. are that only about 1/3 of the people who are positive know it at the time. Now, at some point they may find out, but at any given time, 1/3 of the people with HIV/AIDS are not aware that they're positive. And there's also research that's shown that once people find out they are positive, going forward, they use protection and less risky sex behaviors. And in 1996, so 10 years ago, the county health department noticed a decline in testing. And we're very concerned about it because there was still rising HIV/AIDS cases. The purpose of this campaign then was to increase testing. And the focus was on rapid testing. So you can see where if we have a campaign to increase testing, there might have been a whole bunch of strategies. The strategy here was to do rapid tests, because the test at the time usually took 2 weeks before someone would get back with the results, and they actually had to come in to get the results. The target audience for this, there there are 5 gay bathhouses in Seattle. And the county decided that they would target the gay bathhouses. And that what they would do is send a county staff member to the bathhouses to offer rapid testing. The theory here that's really inspired that strategy is the ecological theory. The theory that says that, people's willingness to do something and the likelihood that they're going to do something, their behaviors are influenced not only by their ideas, attitudes, and skills, they're also influenced by their relationships and the people around them. They're influenced by the community and what they think of as the norm. And they're influenced by societal factors, including infrastructures, having the community clinic only be in certain places. So the ecological model says that we need to look at all of these as we try to figure out what we're going to do to influence behaviors that we want. So let's go through the 4 Ps on this one. The product was an oral rapid test that results in 30 minutes versus the blood test that took 2 weeks to get back. Counseling was there at the gay bathhouse to provide to the person with the results. Price was free. The test was free. Place, this was really the foremost part of the strategy was the place. Going to where they were hanging out and offering the test there was the strategy. And in terms of promotion, it was interesting, the gay bathhouses, when the county approached them, were a little reluctant. Not all excited about having somebody from the health department be there, and were certainly reluctant to promote it. They thought, what's it going to say about me that I'm offering HIV/AIDS tests here? And a year later, not only were they promoting it, it's on the homepage of their website. It had become such a popular attraction and a popular value thing for the people that attended there. In 4 years, they tested 1,559 men. They found 33 positives, which was 2%. Their data showed them that if their efforts came back with 1%, it was cost effective. In fact, they said that they would be willing to spend $10,000 to find 1 positive person. $10,000 was a good rate of return because preventing one HIV/AIDS case was worth roughly $500,000. So if it took us $10,000 to find 1, that's not bad when you consider that the value is $500,000. Because going forward, many of them then changed their behaviors. So it was seen as a high rate of return. Not only that, but the unexpected benefit they had was that then the person who found out they was positive brought their partner back to the gay bathhouse the next time so that they could get tested. All right, got 10 minutes, final case. Litter prevention. So we get in our state about 16 million pounds of litter every year. And we spend $4 million to pick it up, and that only gets us about 25%. So the purpose of this campaign was to reduce litter. Our focus was on cars and pickup trucks. Now, I know you're all staring at this, so I've got to explain it for you. We get 35,000 pee jugs dumped on the roadways every year. They're the truckers. So why aren't the truckers stopping at the public restrooms? Time. And what is time? Yes. So, okay, and I did these focus groups, the most interesting focus groups I've ever done. And I found out that that's the jug of choice. That's the jug of choice. I'm not going to go into the details of why they told me that this was their favorite jug, because it's too graphic. So our target audience were the 20% of the people who were tossing the stuff out of their cars and trucks and cigarette butts and out the back of the pickup truck. About 20% of people litter. 80% of us don't. So we decided, like the norm thing, like the bags in the park, people watching, we decided that the Ranger strategy was going to convince the 20% that the other 80% of us we're watching, and that we don't like it. Therefore, the behavior, so we really have a social norms focus here. The social norms is a really powerful thing, especially when the majority of people are doing the right thing. If the majority of people are doing the desired behavior that you want, one of the first things you should consider doing is letting the people not doing it know that most people are doing it. And that's been working on college campuses when they let freshmen know they have a misperception. Surveys have shown that freshmen in college thought that most kids were binge drinking every week, when in fact only 25% were. Often people will end up doing something in order to fit in. So if you let them know that that's not the norm, you'll get a whole bunch of people not taking on a behavior that you don't want them to take on to fit in. The product here was a hotline. The hotline works like this. I can be driving down a road in Seattle, and if I see somebody's hand out the window with a cigarette butt, I change lanes and get right behind it. Then I write down their license plate number. Then I just wait for them to toss it. And when they toss it, I notice where I am and about what time of day it is. When I get to my destination, I call 1-866-LITTER-1, and a live voice 24/7 says, "Thank you for calling the Washington State Litter Hotline. What did you see?" I saw someone toss a cigarette butt out the window. Was it the passenger side or the driver's side? It was the driver's side. Where were you? Well, I was on Interstate 5 at about 45th. What time was it? Well, it was yesterday afternoon about 3 o'clock. And did you get the license plate? Yes, I did. Thank you very much for helping keep Washington green. In 2 days, that person who's the registered owner of that car will get a letter, and the return address says Washington State Patrol. Doesn't say Department of Ecology, who sponsors this, because they're not going to open it up if it's ecology, but they'll open it up if it's the Washington State Patrol. They open it up, and it says, "Dear registered owner of this car," the license plate, "a concerned citizen saw someone toss a cigarette butt out the driver's side of your window of your car 3 o'clock yesterday, Tuesday afternoon, on I-5 near 45th. I want you to know that if I or one of my troopers had seen you, we would have fined you $1,025. Okay? Or you can report it online. What I'm testing now, as a marketer, what I'm really curious about is what can we do for those poor truckers? I mean, they won my heart. You know, it's like, poor guys, I don't blame them. They don't want to stop. But they also don't they don't really feel okay about dumping that junk out. They don't feel good about it. But, why don't we do like the post office? You know, when they go to the weigh stations, they have to go to the weigh stations anyway. How about when they go to the weigh station, let them roll down their window and toss the pee jug into one of these cartons. And then that's very convenient. Then they won't necessarily toss it on the road. Not only that, what I'd really like is I'd like to give them a clean jug to pick up on the way out.
I thought that was the new video you're designing.
Now, here's what I think will happen. That's why I'm so excited about that strategy. I think that it's very possible that if we did this, especially the clean jug thing, that those truckers would start twittering about it, and that they would Twitter their other truck drivers and go, "You won't believe what they're doing in Washington State. Not only do they give us a place to toss our jug, they give us a clean one on the way out." And then what will happen is they'll toss them in Oregon instead of in Washington. And we'll be number one. So this isn't about, it's not about keeping the state green. It's all about, we're looking for litterers, are you? So this is getting the 80% of us to call the litter hotline. So we've had about 15,000 calls a year to this hotline since it started in 2003. About 5,000 of those are mine alone. They do road surveys every 3 years. It's an independent contractor that nationally comes around and does road surveys, and we reduce litter in the state by 24%, going from 8,000 to 6,000 tons of litter per year. Here's the best part. It cost us, looking at the campaign and the hotline, it cost us $1 to prevent 6.88 pounds of litter. It was costing, and still costs us, $3 to pick it up. So in tough times, this is the kind of data that can get a program funded, because it looks like a better choice than picking up a litter. Now, of course, in these times, we're not even picking up a litter. But in normal times, this is the kind of data that is going to convince funders that you want to do that. And then there's the icing on the cake. The program manager in ecology got this email one day she shared with me. I received one of your packets with a litter bag and literature on littering. Someone reported me throwing a cigarette butt out of my window. I was disturbed that the person knew everything about the moment in the report. I stopped smoking. Over a year later, I am now commuting and am reporting others. Keep up the good work. So what I want you to notice is it took all 4 Ps for that quit line. It took all 4 Ps for that pedestrian flag campaign. It took all 4 Ps for the HIV/AIDS testing and for the litter campaign. I very rarely ever see the needle move much without using all 4 Ps in the toolbox. And I forgot to tell you why I want Washington to be number 1. It'll be kind of fun. But when we're number 1, and back in Washington, D.C., they're going, what the heck are they doing in Washington State? They're not number 1 for littering and immunizations and HIV/AIDS testing. What are they doing? And we'll shout back, we use social marketing. And then what'll happen? It'll be a required course. It'll be a required course for people in public health, public administration, environmental studies, environmental sciences, even a medical degree. It should be doctors every day are influencing behaviors. It should be a required course. Can't imagine having a business degree without a marketing course. We should not be doing public administration degrees or public health degrees without a marketing course as well. Okay, that's it. It's noon. You've got your